Good afternoon. Always good habit to be early as I has ended the Zoom link as of yesterday. So actually I couldn't even find the Zoom link, but set it all up. So we are all set for the last class. I'm pretty excited about. So why don't we start with the three prostrations for you to get his appreciation for the teachings that have come down through all the teachers, as there are definitely places in the world and during time when it wasn't available. Start with the two prayers in Tibetan. If you remember the mandala, keep your hands together. The middle finger's the great mountain. Cross the pinky finger, touch each with your thumb. Cross your middle finger, rub each with your forefinger. So you have your great mountain and the four continents, which is also discussed in a future course. Um, so this is the mandala, and I will place the prayer. So you can hold the mandala and hopefully still see the prayer. So it goes Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangsu Pardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupar Sho Idam Guru Ratnam Malakam Nirtayami. Now, if you kept that mandala, you can now kind of unfold it into a prayer by your heart, where we'll practice that, where we'll chant the refuge and the wish 3 times. Refuge and the wish. And it goes Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangsu Pardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Jupar Shok Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangsu Pardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Rolam Panchir Sangye Jupar Sho Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jiangsu Pardu Dakni Kyamsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drolam Panchir Sangye Jupar Sho. And if you haven't seen the English, maybe just take a peek, because really this is what this course was entitled about: refuge, taking refuge, Buddhist refuge. Even though we have to admit that a lot of the classes were, majority of them weren't about refuge. Some ways you could say all the classes are about refuge, but it's a good review because today's class actually should be a little shorter. You know, in the materials, in the notes, this is like the shortest class ever, like 1 paragraph. So in a way, it was a treat, but it's also a review class of the material, which is what I will spend a bit of time on. But yeah, one of the points to review would be to say refuge. What do you remember about refuge? Uh, it's not a word I think a lot of us use regularly, but refuge is taking protection. And so, taking Buddhist refuge is taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha jewel, the three jewels, to seek protection. And so when you go for protection, usually you're going because you are hopefully in need, that's your fear of something. And that, they say depending on the different fear you have, that the students of the lesser scope are usually scared of being reborn in the three lower realms. So being born in the hell realm, like craving spirits, being reborn as an animal. So that is, fear that they will say us Westerners don't really have. I mean, I can say it now, and I can't really say I feel a lot of fear. Though I remember later on when you learn about the course and hear the details of it, it does sound like just like a horror movie, um, what you experience. And being a sensitive person, I probably should be more scared of it. But one reason they say Westerners are not is because we are in a society that doesn't talk about reincarnation and rebirth that much. So that is why that is not such a big fear for us. Um, Students of the medium scope, that their fear is to be stuck in samsara, to relive, even as a human, this life over and over. So that is, the fear is to be stuck in this cycle of suffering. And students of the higher scope, um, we do want to, you know, reach enlightenment, not just for ourselves, but for the sake of all beings. And yeah, this is something just this morning as I was preparing for this class that made me think about it a bit more. And it was, the teacher saying that we can help people with many things, but all the things that we can help with, finances, your time, your energy, your advice, um, they're all temporary, that they're not really going to last. And that if we really, really want to help those we love, those we care about, all people, we need to be an enlightened being ourselves. We need to be able to, you know, um, show up for others in whatever form they need, whether it's an object or a person, persons, and help them learn. Because again, another thing I realize is like, we hear this stuff and it's intellectual, it makes sense, and but the seeds of seeing things as self-existent, are so strong that as soon as you say it, you can be looking at something, looking at the screen, looking at me, and it'll look like things are coming from out there, um, especially attractive things that you like. So yeah, refuge requires you to be fearful, and then it requires you to then seek refuge in the Buddha. Dharma jewel is Buddha, supposedly because he has met all his needs. He has reached enlightenment, the end of the path. Who else to teach you? Someone who has completed it. Right? Dharma jewel is the teachings, and this is what you're being exposed to. This is what you should be really celebrating, that if you are here making time to listen, watch this, it isn't something that many people have the karma for, or if they do, it doesn't stay. So make it to class 10 should be a really big pat on the back for you. The Sangha Jewel, just other beings who have seen the direct perception of emptiness, that these teachings on emptiness that we'll go over, especially from last week, aren't things that they can just repeat, but they know. Think about how many things you know from having lived it, having experienced it. There are so many examples. Any advice you'd want to give to a young child on what you've experienced, or to yourself from the past? They come because it's part of what they'll say, your mind stream. It's a truth that you now feel, not just think. And this is what the direct perception of emptiness is, a real experience of seeing things existing, coming from within. I shared that study about how when we see things, we receive this visual stimuli, but our mind, to try to help us process it faster, if it kind of can figure out what it is, it will send a signal also to the part of our mind that processes what it is, sending what it believes it is. So you looked at some of those black and white images from the handout, and maybe you kind of saw one part first, and then you could see the other side later on. Yeah, that is amazing to hear how science is confirming what Buddhism has said. So yes, Buddhist Refuge, this is where we are looking to these three jewels as a way to help us while we are still in this cycle of suffering. So what I wanted to do was review a little bit of what we went over last week, because it was a lot. At least it was a lot of notes for me. And to help with that, I'm going to guide you into a meditation on emptiness. And it was great. This morning, I had this printout every time I went to a retreat, and I finally found the link to it on the file where all these files are at. So I downloaded it and I'll send it to you. But I think it's always nice, instead of you reading it and then closing your eyes, that someone else reads it out to you. So come into a comfortable position. You can lie down if you don't think you're going to fall asleep. Otherwise, if you sit up nice and tall. That you can breathe as fully as you're designed, so energy can move up your spine. As you sit nice and tall, your legs crossed, extended out if it's not comfortable that way. Shoulders relaxed. Excuse me. Hands can be in many positions. There's many mudras, which are energy points on your hands, but a nice simple one I'll suggest is one set of fingers on top of the other. For males, left palm on top. Females, right fingers over your left. Tips of your thumb slightly touching, just kind of around your navel, below your navel, resting on your legs. So you don't have to hold up your arms. Your chin, just check. Some people tend to drop it down. or some of us might lift it up so you're looking upwards. But you want to just gently tuck it in so that if you're looking out through the middle of your eyes, you look out towards imaginary horizon. So you can check if you're not sure with the eyes, look through the middle. That'd be where the sun rises or sets. Again, if you're sleepy, lids can stay a little open. You're not really looking, but just letting a bit more light, but be more relaxed just to let them close. Tip of your tongue where the roof of your mouth meets the top of your teeth. Connecting with your breath through your nostrils. Breathe through the nostrils, clear it with a Kleenex, or breathe through your mouth. A little inner smile to thank yourself. Thank yourself so very, very much for making this time, this precious commodity. I would say probably more precious than money for those of us here in the Western world. With your eyes closed, this is a meditation on emptiness by Kedrup J, famous disciple of the famous Jason Kappa, which you'll hear more about in other courses. And it's a wonderful meditation they say you can do as an antidote to some not so good karma you do. Right? So this one is looking at a neutral object. Right? So the example that they offer here is to visualize a table in front of you. A table in front of you. You can look at it from the top or from the side. There's 4 sides to look at, but pick one side. You're going to visualize this table. See it as a simple wooden table. 4 legs, the top rectangular piece, so that there's 5 pieces of wood which make up this table. When you see this table, it's a good reminder that this table is not coming from out there. With your eyes closed, you can definitely agree this table that you see comes from your own side, comes from your mind. You just created it. And if you even look closer, let's have you look at it from the side angle. And you can't even see maybe all 4 legs. You might just see from the side view the top of the table and 2 legs. And that your mind is adding the other 2 legs that it doesn't even see. And if you're looking at the side, you don't even see the top of the table. Who knows? There could be a hole in it. There could be no piece of wood in the middle of it. Would it still be a table? So if you're really honest about it, your eyes don't really look at either leg at the same time. As I mentioned, your mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So if it really slowed it down, I say karma ripens 40, 64 frames per second, super fast. You'll only be seeing one leg and then the other leg and then the top. We can't see the whole thing, even if you were to zoom back. And then even if you looked at just one leg right now, one leg of this table, your eyes would probably be picking up one edge of the leg, left edge, and then the right edge. Maybe the bottom edge, or the top edge connected to the rectangular top of the table. So even this leg of this table is made up of parts. The legs, and each leg is made up of parts. And you can zoom in even closer. And if you could zoom in so close, you could see the grains of wood that make up this one leg. You would see that there's edges to that, there's parts to that. Furthest left grain touches the left side of the leg, the right side of this edge, this piece of the wood connects with the next sliver of wood. And if you use a microscope and looked in deeper, you would even see that you could keep seeing, zooming in and seeing more and more parts. So that every detail, every part of this object is really a projection of your mind. That there is no actual raw data out there. There's no actual table out there on its own. And that with your mind, it's connecting and creating what you see as a table. And because of that, it is changeable. It's not fixed. Or if it was fixed, then everybody would see this image you have as a table. Now, if it wasn't made up of parts,
oh my God, Tyler, I'm so sorry.
if it was actually,
Is it okay? I'm like 5 minutes, like I'm on 5 minutes. You want me to come still or is it okay?
if it is actually
Yeah.
an existent thing, there would be no parts to it.
You know,
And if you did cover up one leg, try to talk over my wife. If you actually saw one leg, or sorry, if you covered up that one, then the whole table has to be one thing. So sorry about the interruption. That is the end of the meditation. You can just wrap it up in a all golden light, like a balloon. Just let it float up into the sky. And just rub your palms together till nice and warm. What I like to do is just kind of place the warm palms, the energy of the warm palms over your hands. Move any part of your body that feels a little stiff from the sitting. You just arch forward and back. Make little circles with your upper body. Shake out your legs if you cross them. Or massage any part with your fingers. So yeah, um, here I have one of the dog's toys right in front of me. That again, if this was self-existent duck, toy duck, you could even say for dogs. Supposedly, if you covered up one part, just say the head, if this is a duck to everybody, just covering it should be one thing. And by covering up one thing, the whole part would disappear, which is not true. You cover it up. If I even covered up just like one leg, you probably still could see that it's still a toy duck. So that is the proof, one of the proofs that we had tried to explain last week, that if anything has parts, then it is not one thing. It is not a self-existent thing. And so, the breakdown, I happen to have a picture of everything in the universe. See that? Starting from the top, all things divided into unchanging things or changing things divided into physical or mental things, physical things into gross, like in terms of large ones you can see, or subtle ones so small like atoms that you can't. All things, they say, have parts. And so if you can prove that things have parts and things are not self-existent, and if they're not self-existent, then they can change. And that is how you can, who is not a Buddha right now, can become a Buddha. Because if you were self-existent, if I was self-existent, who I am today would be all I could be. I couldn't change. You couldn't change. But I do believe we all agree we change. Uh, our thoughts change, our feelings change, our body changes, you know, and that this change comes from our past karma. The example my teacher gave, which I really liked, was think of yourself as in movie complex, I think now it's mostly Cineplex here in Canada, but one of those big movie complexes where there's many screens inside many movies. And we are in a movie house, as he calls it, and not of our own choice. Sometimes we're just thrown into a certain theater to watch a certain movie, a romantic movie, an action movie, scary movie, sad movie. I mean, how many feelings have you had this past week? Have you had this morning? Today? Um, and when we go in and we experience this movie, unfortunately, whether we like it or don't like it, I can't change it. In this reality we live in, we can't change it till our karma changes. And when it does, then we're allowed to leave, finish the movie. And it is true. Sometimes we watch the same movie, have the same experience. Sometimes a very long movie. It stays for a long time. Um, but yeah, this is what we are experiencing and what we're trying to get out of, to be completely out of this movie house. So you might have already seen the email advertising the next course called Applied Meditation. And when I was preparing the poster, I was almost going, maybe I just put meditation course. It might maybe attract more people. Because it didn't, I have to admit, I guess I know the meaning of applied, but I didn't really, it didn't occur to me when I was thinking of removing it until I Googled it and copied that definition into the email, and how it means that it isn't learning about theory. Like, I mean, you talked about emptiness, but applied means applying it into your life. And so applied meditation is, yeah, there is going to be a lot of discussion about how to sit, what to do prepare before you sit, what to meditate on, how to meditate, how to avoid the problems. There's a lot in this next course. I'm looking forward to reviewing, but more importantly, it is how it is applied into our lives. And so I kind of feel like this course, like, why are we studying these details of emptiness? Maybe this proof is not something you'll ever tell someone else, maybe ever recall anymore. And as Geshe Michael Roach says, just learning the details will help you remember the main point. Um, so this is where I guess part of the review I wanted to offer was like, what are some of the things that we, you know, um, understanding how things are not self-existent. Uh, you know, what is its application? How does it apply to you? Maybe I'll give you a second to see if you can, what comes up. It's one of the ones I know the teacher taught this course wrote was one that I will say I was really happy to hear, but still something I have to remind myself of. And that is not needing to worry about what others think about you, not needing to worry. And I think for a lot of us, that is true. Maybe for some of us, it is true for some people, but for others, some people in our lives, it does matter what they think of us. It does affect us. So I think I fall in the latter category. Um, yeah, some people I don't really care what they think about me, and others people I do. But it is true. Whatever you say, however you say it, whatever intention you had, it might not be received that way, right? You have the best intentions. Um, at the open door yoga studio, I would sometimes share these messages, reminders I thought will help us help our students, help us remind us to work together like a team. And Georgina um, would, you know, speak with the teachers a little bit more after the meeting sometimes. And yeah, she would say, "Oh, yeah, these teachers really liked your message," and she could tell by their emails. And others she could tell didn't like it. Same message, but like I said, out of three people you meet, one you like, one you dislike, and one you feel neutral. Supposedly, those are the odds. So you can test that out, see if that's true for you. That's definitely one application. Um, and an even better one is not to worry about what you think of yourself. This one was, yeah, because they say we talk about emptiness first in terms of an object, sometimes pen, and maybe we agree to that. But a more difficult one would be to see the emptiness of yourself. That can you consider that you yourself, say your name to yourself, is empty, that you are just a projection too. Look at your hands, look at your legs. I mean, look like a human, but if you pass away and you're born as a dog, suddenly have furry paws, be looking at furry feet. Yeah, you wouldn't be talking. So this is where I think in the Heart Sutra, no eyes, no ears, the emptiness. If you feel you're comfortable with it, start thinking about it for yourself. And that your thoughts about yourself are not true. Though for a lot of us, or sometimes in our lives, it is true. I've thought of myself at some times as being really ugly. And I've thought of others, seen myself other times being very handsome. I've seen myself as being very stupid, very dumb, and other times feeling quite proud of myself being very clever and someone who knows it all. Um, what's true? I guess you could say they're all true when I felt them, but they do change. So, one message this teacher also taught this was that we do create our reality. We have control. It might seem like what I'm saying, oh, we're going into a movie house and we're watching a movie that's already been recorded from our past actions. Um, it is true. What you're experiencing right now, you just experienced this morning, is something from the past. And it might seem like you have no control over it. But that should assure you that you have the ability to create your future. That the seeds you plant will create your next movie, your future movie. And that you don't need to, you know, uh, just hope and wish and pray. You know that you're planting in the seeds. Unfortunately, you don't know when they're going to sprout. So it does mean you will need to keep planting until you receive those results. But and if you're living results you don't like, karma you don't like, that you can tell yourself that you're purifying some of the bad karma. You know, Um, I loved how my son, one day I shared with him, and he was, fairly young, and it was his first time when he's off to university. He came back, recalled, and he was like, "Oh, Dad, I just experienced some bad karma. Fell off my bike and broke, I think, or lost his AirPods or something." And I was just quite impressed that he, you know, had been able to apply this to his own life and not blame life for giving him what he received. So yeah, we're always living result. And though you can talk yourself to seeing things in a different way, I definitely did prior to learning about this, try to look for the lesson in it, the learning in it, um, which I still do now because it's like, how the heck did I get this result? Well, it must have been from something I did. So I better stop doing it if I don't want it anymore. But if you don't like what you're feeling, um, you can talk yourself all you want, but you'll have to feel it. Um, so, yeah. And yeah, emptiness means that you can really see that truth that life is uncertain, that you don't know what the heck will happen as soon as you finish this listening. Will it be a good interaction you have with whoever? Will it be a fun act? Will you enjoy what you're going to do next? Or will you not enjoy it? You just don't know. Your highest high I experienced recently can be followed by your lowest low. Yeah. Um, and this is a good one that are in the Buddhist notes. What works for some people may not work for you. And they use the example of medicine. And this is definitely true. You know, look in your medicine cabinet. I'm sure there's some medicine in there that works for you, but and others which don't. Others you bought because other people told you it works, and you bought it and it doesn't work for you. I use the example of investment strategies. You know, um, you can be conservative, you can be aggressive, you can diversify, and you can follow that, and it may not work, or it may work, and then you'll think it's because of that, and you'll be preaching and telling your friends about that, and it doesn't work for them. Um, so yeah, this is one of the big, I think, applications is realizing things that work for others may not work for you or may work for you, or vice versa. So Geshe Michael Roach wrote this book. I don't have a copy, otherwise I'd show you, but it's a simple name, Karmic Management. Karmic Management. You can find it on Amazon. It's a very thin book. I made it purposely so thin that people could read it on a flight. And it's to share these principles without going into the theory of how emptiness works or the proof of it. But it's just saying that, his example is like an executive wants to increase sales and he's debating two different marketing campaigns. Well, you can do all the research into, the pros and cons of each. But Geshe Michael Roach says, if he did not have the karma, neither will work. And if he has the karma, both will work. So what is his suggestion? Not to focus your energy on um, finding the way, but in loading your stapler. Loading your stapler. And I think this makes sense because we all know what a stapler is. If you have no staples, a stapler is not going to work. And if you do have staples, it will work most of the time. So I remember reading it, and as I was trying to help our studio um, increase sales, obviously at one point, I decided not to, look more into social media or different, um, marketing things that I saw other businesses do that I was doing before. But I decided to go help other studios, go talk to other studio owners, and see if they needed help, if we were doing something that they could copy or that I could see that they could change. I thought that would be loading the stapler, and that's what I spent my energy doing. I would say, looking back, I do feel it worked. A lot of the studios I did help, unfortunately, did not survive COVID, um, and ours did. And yeah, I mean, maybe part of me will say, oh, uh, we were fortunate to have the government subsidies, but the government subsidies were available for all studios, not just ours. So, yeah, that's a good example of that. Mm, yeah, application of emptiness. Maybe I'll talk about dying later. Um, but there's this, maybe it's a little change. I should share this story. Okay. I mean, I did tell, I did suggest for some of you to, um, my hope obviously is for you to continue on this path and to learn more about it. So, you know, it is important I go over the notes, even though they're really short. So let me kind of do that maybe and see if I have time for the last story. And if not, I'll share it in another class. But this class, funny enough, might seem unrelated, and it's talking about who is Maitreya. Who is Maitreya? And the debate is whether he actually was a Buddha or whether he was just a student of Buddha. Because in some writings, he is quoted as um, asking Buddha questions. It's recorded as that. But um, it is also noted that he might be a Buddha who just kind of reincarnated as that character to help share the teachings, because some of the teachings can be better explained with a good question. So let me just find that sheet. So the name Maitreya actually means love in Sanskrit. Um, you might recall I talked about offering the four immeasurable thoughts of love, compassion, joy, and doing good, and treating each other's as your beloved. And that first one, offering love, is commonly, as you do that exercise, do that yoga class, you're reciting the name Maitreya. Maitreya. Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, so the debate is whether he is a Buddha, and part of the notes wants to emphasize the importance of a teacher. Um, there were classmates in my class when I took these 18 courses that asked the actual teacher to be their teacher. I mean, formally went to them and asked them to be their teacher. And but I didn't feel the pull to do that. I mean, I think by the time I started really getting into um, these courses, the teacher stopped teaching um, the courses, and then I was uh, left to kind of just learn it on my own, which I didn't mind. But so in that way, I didn't ask her to be my teacher. But um, now I'm in the Tantra, in the secret teachings, and that one does require a teacher. And that did require um, me to have to go through different steps to ask this teacher to be my teacher. Um, so I won't go into details because there is some class about the importance of a teacher. I'm also going to send off a little reading on Tantra, on the secret teachings, because this debate is kind of answered by saying that Maitreya, according to the open teachings, which is what we're learning right now, which is ones that Buddha shared with everybody, says he wasn't a Buddha. He was like a student. But in the secret teachings, supposedly he was a Buddha. And yeah, so these secret teachings called Tantra um, do require, you know, uh, a well qualified teacher, but they also require the student to, they say, to be living a very pure spiritual life. Um, and so this article that Geshe Michael Roach wrote about that really gives a good explanation if you're at all curious about it. And yeah, I encourage you to just read it, even if you're not, because I guess the part that made me, that drew me was, well, just following morality, treating Buddha 200,000 lifetimes to reach enlightenment. But Tantra promises and offers the option, offers a promise of reaching it in one lifetime. One lifetime. So a lot faster, right? And if samsara is what you want to leave, yeah, um, one lifetime sounds pretty good. So um, that is what they were trying to explain just by simply talking about Maitreya, to share with students that there is this other path that awaits some people after they learn these 18 courses. Um, is there anything else? Yep, I think those were actually really were the points for the class on what Maitreya is. Let me just double check if there's something in my teacher's notes I might want to repeat about these classes. Um, Obviously, bodhicitta, a reminder again, is that wish for reaching enlightenment for the sake of all beings. That you need to have that in your heart to be a real Buddha. That you can reach nirvana first, nirvana not a place, but where you reach when you are able to get rid of all the mental afflictions in your mind, ones that disturb the peace of your mind. That nirvana requires you still to see the direct perception of emptiness, but that if you don't have this in your heart this desire to help all beings, um, will mean that you don't become a full Buddha, that you're not able to, you know all things, be able to manifest as anything. Um, that in fact, if you don't have bodhicitta and you reach nirvana, you actually have to go right back to the beginning and do the whole path or accumulate as much karma again to reach Buddhahood. Example I said is like, you know, instead of going all the way to North End, um, from the airport on the way to Whistler, you actually have to go all the way back to the airport and then make the whole trek over. Remember that the trek is one where you need to accumulate enough good karma, right? So basically, you're doing a lot more. Um, so yes, that is hopefully what some of you who just took the first course learned about. That nirvana is a cessation caused by the individual analysis, which consists of eliminating mental affliction obstacles in its entirety from the mental stream. So individual analysis is um, realizing the four Arya truths after you've seen the direct perception of emptiness, that you realize the truth of suffering. Life is suffering. There's a cause to suffering, which is ignorance, which is another way of saying that we see things as existing out there. Um, Cessation of suffering. There is a way that suffering will end. Um, that they always say it's a great thing that it's um, just how your mind, um, what is the term they use? Not a mistake of the mind, but a problem of the mind. So maybe it's not even that same exact word, but they're just saying that this ignorance, which is from seeds, that if you eliminate that, there is a path to the end of suffering, right? And the path is these three paths that was discussed in the first course of renunciation, bodhicitta, and understanding wisdom, emptiness, which is what I hoped you remember from the past few classes about how to see things. Um, so yeah, I think maybe I will just share. I'll just share one more quote from Buddha. Um, that this I'm sure some of you have heard of, maybe not. It says, all the happiness in the world comes from thinking of others. And all the happiness in the world comes from thinking of others. It's not the exact words. I'm kind of um, uh, this is what I remember from the quote. But all the unhappiness in the world comes from cherishing oneself. All the unhappiness in the world comes from cherishing oneself. So I'll let you kind of chew on that a little bit, because for some of you, it might go, oh, yeah, that is true. You know, think about the unhappiness that you see in the world and just turn on the news, as I said, and you can see that it may come from people cherishing themselves, being greedy, taking care of themselves first, and then consider, is all the happiness coming from people thinking about others? That I had wanted to share this because I really do feel this is true. Um, when I heard it, it kind of made sense. And as I looked for more and more, as I tested it out in my life, I'd written to a friend one time a few years ago, went on a trip. You're so excited, before you go on the trip, you're on the plane, you're super excited. Then you get there, you're with your family who you want to be with, to share this with, and suddenly just things fall off. Like people are grumpy, people are angry at each other, don't want to do this. It's suddenly what you think is going to be relief, a vacation, um, isn't that at all. And I think at the end of the first day or second day, it just was like so miserable, so unhappy. I was just like telling my wife, I'm ready to just like go home or send the kids home. That was like uh, what I felt was the cause of it at that time. And she felt the same. And I think the same came to me. I maybe had to do a little bit of homework, and I'm so glad I did. Because when I did, I was suddenly going, okay, this is true. I'm going to make this trip about others. Forget about myself. Like I paid all this money already. I'm just going to try to make them happy, and we can have good times when I get home. And yeah, we let the younger son do what he wanted to do, not drag him along. Let the big one do what he wanted to do. Um, Tried to choose things my wife wanted to do. And slowly but surely, suddenly, I felt better. That as I kept thinking about how to make this trip better for each of the three of them, my trip became better and better. And ended up getting me to drive down south to France. Um, so, yeah, I guess the homework I was going to offer in these next few weeks uh, before our next class on January 10th, first class, is to do that. That I know they say, the holiday time can seem really festive and joyful, but for some it isn't. For some who actually have to be with their family, this can be a very challenging, difficult time. I forgot the name of this teacher, kind of a self-help famous teacher, if it comes to me, but he was saying, if you think you're enlightened, go home and spend time with your family. Yeah, because it is a challenging. They are ones who, you know, can trigger you. Um, so, yeah, it requires you to remember all the tools that helps you, um, to be mindful, to take care of yourself so that you are not going to react and you'll respond. Um, and that, yeah, if you can consider their needs, I think it will help, hopefully, um, bring more happiness during the holidays for you. So I believe that is what I will share today. Um, I will also encourage you to continue to um, bring Dharma into your life daily, whether that might mean um, doing meditating a little bit each day in the morning or at night, before you go to bed, or um, it could be doing a little bit of the readings that you didn't do, maybe even a homework from this course, or just simply noting down, if you can, 6 times a day, but if not, maybe in your day timer, just the end of the day, an example of emptiness, an example of some good karma that happened to you that you may believe exists outside of you. Um, and then maybe some not so good karma. Just noting it down will just keep that thought in your mind. That if you do experience not so good karma over these next few weeks, to remember that you are purifying it. Kind of remember that any not so good experience you have felt, and that if you are experiencing some wonderful karma, which definitely I would love for you to experience, that you dedicate some of this to um, your enlightenment, because we all need a lot of that good karma to help us continue moving forward on this path. So that's where I'll leave it. That they say on class 10, you don't actually do the prayer because you are going to continue the course. So maybe just close your eyes. Thank yourself again for making this valuable time and energy to hear and to learn. And just make that request that the goodness from what you have done will be seeds you can plant towards your enlightenment, so that you don't only help yourself, but that you can truly help all beings towards their enlightenment. And then let's end though with 3 prostrations. Thanking for the teachings. Thank you again for listening, being here. The extra big shout out to the one who is an aggressive helper for helping me. Namaste.